Test, test.
So
Test, test.
and then this goes all the way out here. Is this on? This is on, so we should be good there.
Can't hear it in here.
You can't hear it on there?
Oh, yeah. Test, test. No, yeah, now I can.
Okay. So then that's good. And then I guess the same setting would be true. Yeah, and then we
You guys have the whole building?
We have the third and the fourth floor, and I think we might be expanding out. Second floor. Hello. I think we did. Nice to meet you again.
Yeah, I found it.
And can I start with announcements?
So I will double check on these. Yeah, nice.
Are we ready? Good morning, everybody, and welcome to 1 Million Cups. We're excited to have you all here today. For those of you, this is your first time, I'm just going to give a quick overview. What we'll do is announcements quick, then we'll do introductions. It gives you a chance to say who you are and what firm you're with or what project you're working on. And then we will turn things over to Pegasus, and you'll get to listen to their business plan and ideas and hopefully help them solve a problem during the Q&A session. The presenter will present for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll turn things over to the audience, and you guys will get about 20 minutes to ask questions and poke holes in the Pegasus business plan and all that fun stuff. Just remember to be kind. And then Mark will stay around for a few minutes afterwards, and if you have individual questions or want to network, you'll have the opportunity to do so. And then a couple quick announcements. We want to say thank you to our sponsors. We've got Field 59, who does a live stream and video recording of each event so that our presenters can listen to the feedback, and also if you can't attend 1 Million Cups, you can tune in via the live stream and watch it from anywhere. We also have coffee provided by Nordic Consulting. We're thankful for the Madison Public Library for giving us this space. And what else was I? Sorry, I think I have a pregnancy brain for a moment. We also want to encourage any of our presenters or anybody you know that's interested to come and present. There is a competition called 1 in a Million through the Kauffman Foundation that all 1 Million Cups presenters are eligible to apply for. And the grand prize is $10,000. They fly you out to Kansas City. You get to participate in a pitch competition there. It's really easy to apply. So anybody can contact us via the 1 Million Cups website if you need help on doing so. Another plug for Our sponsors, I know Nordic Consulting is hiring all positions, not just Epic consultants, but for internal folks as well, and I believe Catalyze is hiring too. In addition to some of our previous presenters, which include Grocer Key and Scanalytics. So if you know somebody who's interested in those companies, or you go on our website and watch their video and you're interested, feel free to get in contact with me and I can put you in touch with the presenters / CEOs of those companies. And finally, we also have an event during Forward Fest. 1 Million Cups will be a part of that. If you're not familiar with Forward Fest, I suggest you go on the internet and look it up. It's a really great program that runs through Madison at the end of August, and there will be a ton of entrepreneurial and tech and different events here that you can go to. The evening of 1 Million Cups, which is August 26th, Shobhan Thacker and I will be hosting We Are All Criminals, and that's an event that's going to be held here on the 3rd floor. There will be free beer via Mobcraft and food from the Underground Collective. We're also sponsored by Wyden and Field 59, so we're really excited that Emily Baxter will be coming down from the University of Minnesota to talk about how our criminal justice system treats people of color and those with lower incomes differently. So please join us for that. And then finally, I think we're going to turn things over to the introductions in the audience. I'll go really quick. I'm Rachel Neal. I'm one of the organizers of 1 Million Cups, and I also work at Nordic Consulting.
Good morning, I'm Sarah Nettie. I'm an organizer of 1 Million Cups. I also work at a health IT startup downtown called Catalyze.
Steve Claude, co-founder of 32 Auctions, which is an online silent auction platform.
I'm Molly Siegel. I work at a startup business intelligence consulting firm called Talivant.
Hi, my name is Paul Asper. I guess I'm an entrepreneur. I never called myself that before, but I am starting a hard cider company here in Madison, making cider way on the opposite side of the spectrum that's out there right now. It's not sweet, it's dry, it's more in line with our tradition of making cider naturally and all that stuff. So, all right.
I'm Drew Corson. I'm an attorney at Knight & Boucher, and I work mostly with startups.
Hi, Varun Pargava. I work in the retail analytics space for Retail Next.
I'm Yoli Voitola, a student at the UW, as well as an intern for Ascendancy Advisors on the Square.
Joanne Oravec, UW Whitewater, Information Technology Supply Chain Management Department.
Joey Frayne with WEDC on the E&I team.
Randy Weiland with Nordic Consulting.
I'm Wade Malik. I'm the CFO for Pegasus Sustainability.
I'm Roy Weimer. I'm one of the directors of the Pegasus program. Probably learn a little bit more about that.
My name is Jessica, and I'm the marketing manager at Pegasus Sustainability.
Thank you, and I think we'll turn it over to Mark then.
Okay. You can plug me in here.
Yes.
Oh, you don't need that.
Okay. Clearly no work being done at the office since everybody's here. So good morning. My name is Mark Hope. I'm the founder and CEO of Pegasus Sustainability, and we don't have anything on the screen here. I'm an entrepreneur that's been in business for a long time. I started out my career in the Army. I got out of the Army after about 12 years and then worked for the Coca-Cola Company. Became a division president for Coca-Cola, left Coca-Cola, and then worked for a couple of private equity firms and a turnaround group. Left that business, started a competitive strategy firm in Chicago, and then started this company in 2012. So the best way to talk about this company is that we create a market for business-to-business services. So imagine that you're a printer in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and you look out in the warehouse one day and notice you have 3 drums of ink waste. And you say to your office administrator, hey, we need to get this ink waste out of here. So she does what everyone who's less than my age does. She goes to a browser, types in hazardous waste removal, hazardous waste disposal, or what have you, and at that point, one of our paid ads pops up to the top of the page, or one of our organic results is usually number 1, 2, or 3. They click on the result, go to a landing page, see what we have to say about that topic, call an 800 number, which is answered in Fitchburg. We take that customer through a series of questions asking about the nature of the waste and where it originated and what have you. All of that information is taken into a script. The customer service rep presses a button that creates an opportunity inside of Salesforce that's then pushed into what we call PegX, which is a fulfillment engine. What PegX then does is it prepares it much like a eBay listing, and you see this opportunity. It is then made visible to all of the vendors that could possibly do this work. And the way it's organized is vendors say what geographic radius they're willing to work in and what type of services they want to provide, and that makes sure they only see things that are relevant to them. So the opportunity pops up. They can either claim the opportunity in some cases. In other cases, it runs a reverse auction where each vendor bids lower and lower until there's finally a winner. In any case, at the end of this process, one of the vendors is selected. The vendor then contacts the customer, completes the work, and we invoice the vendor for the process. So what we're doing, it's analogous to Uber, right? You've got people who want to ride, and you've got people who want to drive. So we've got customers who need services, and we've got vendors who are looking for opportunities. We match them up with this engine, this fulfillment engine, and so our objective is to give the customer a very, very personal experience, a very high quality experience, and to help vendors, particularly smaller vendors, find work that they would have never seen otherwise. So that's what we do. So we are a provider of B2B services. We started much like Amazon started with books, right? And today they do everything. We want to do all services, all B2B services eventually, but we started with environmental services. And we chose environmental services primarily because it's a very difficult field. There's a lot of regulations, a lot of complexity, a lot of challenges there. It's a very, very old school industry. There's very little innovation from a marketing perspective or a customer service perspective. We did a lot of preliminary research looking for, business-to-business service segments that were underserved, and we also wanted to try to get into something that was going to be difficult for 5 or 6 young entrepreneurs to say, oh, I'm going to get right in there too. So we picked something very difficult and very challenging. And also I think the point is that if your first segment is really challenging, then the next one will be that much easier. We started in 2012, and today we're doing about $400,000 a month of revenue. So we should be nearly $7 million in revenue this year. So, we're not a classic startup. We kind of got through that point, and now we see ourselves as early growth, ready to scale. So we're now at the place that Amazon would have been when they said, look, we got books figured out. Let's do CDs and let's do DVDs. And we're sort of at that stage now where we're ready to start adding segments. So this is our team. You met Wade there for a minute. We've got a couple of other executives that maybe are still at work, but who knows. So these are the markets that we're operating in today. Hazardous and regulated waste is nearly $9 billion. It's a big industry. There's a lot of opportunity out there. Environmental remediation, which is things like mold or asbestos remediation or underground storage tank removal or soil remediation, very big industry, almost twice that size. Emergency spill response is not always, the Exxon Valdez or something. In many cases, it could be a 10-gallon or a 50-gallon spill that's heading toward a storm drain or something, and we're able to respond within a couple of hours to those jobs. Medical waste, big industry. And the total B2B service market is kind of hard to pin it down, but we believe it's about $232 billion. So the space that we're operating in is very large, and our expectation is to make a difference in this space by providing really high quality service to customers and a steady stream of work to vendors who wouldn't have found that work otherwise. So as I said, we've got a proposition both for the customer and for the partner. And it's interesting, if you think about it, if you work at Uber, right, there are people at Uber whose entire job is to try to find drivers. And there are people at Uber whose entire job is to try to find people who want rides. So it's a business that's very bifurcated. You've got people working in both directions. And if you have more of one than you have of the other, somebody's not happy. So if you've got drivers and nobody wants a ride, they're not happy. If you've got people who want a ride and they can't find a car, they're not happy. It's exactly the same scenario for us. So we have to try to maintain this balance all the time. So it's a relatively challenging proposition to keep both sides of the business running equally. So our business model starts with what we call demand harvesting. Now, in my Coca-Cola days, we talked about demand generation or demand creation, and I think you can't really create demand for products like this or services like this. The demand exists, and what you want to do is try to harvest that demand. So we use a variety of inbound marketing techniques: pay-per-click, search engine marketing, content marketing, email marketing, and social media marketing, all of which are really not designed to push a message in front of customers, a la my Coca-Cola days, but rather to get information, useful content, useful details about what we can do into the marketplace, into the internet, into the sort of ecosystem of where people operate, so that when they need something, we're there. Once we sort of harvest that demand and capture an opportunity, it comes into our customer service department. Now again, this is sort of a contemporary thought, and that is that there's nothing more uncommon than good customer service. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to interact with a customer in a way that they feel like, how do I not work with this company? They're so personable, they're so helpful, they're so knowledgeable. That interpersonal relationship cements the relationship early on, where if you go to a site and they say, sure, we can help you, fill out this form. And you fill out the form and you hit submit, and that form goes off somewhere and you're not sure where, and later you get an email back from somebody. That's sort of the interaction we're all accustomed to today, because everybody's trying to scale, and they say, well, how can I scale if I have to hire customer service people? But if you look at the Zappos model, for example, Zappos trying to sell shoes, but Zappos said, look, one thing we know is that people like to talk to people, and people like to interact with people. So we're sort of interjecting that thought into our business model. PegX was born out of necessity, because what was happening in the early days of the company, we would get an opportunity, one of our technical people would then identify an appropriate vendor, we'd match up the vendor with the opportunity, and we'd fulfill it. But the average technical director could only handle about 70 jobs a month. So here we were trying to become this big player in this big market, and we realized to become a $50 million company, I'd have to have 350 technical directors. And just the payroll thought was enough to make one lose one's lunch. So what we decided to do was say, how can we automate this entire process? And so we came up with a bunch of different ideas. We could sell the opportunity or sell the lead to somebody. We could run a reverse auction where vendors bid it down. We could run a forward auction where people bid on the opportunity. We could allow people to claim an opportunity directly. We could push it straight through the exchange to a preferred partner. So what we ended up with is this algorithm that says, explain to me the nature of this job. How urgent is it? Where is it located? What is the nature of the job? And so on. It looks at all of that criteria, evaluates it, and then decides which fulfillment technique is most appropriate for that job, routes it to that technique, and it gets exposed to the marketplace. We have about 1,200 vendors today. Only about 10% of those are seriously active in our system, and that's Roy's job, for example, and that's what we're trying to do every day, is to expand the universe of vendors and partners that are actively utilizing PegX to find work. Once the partner is selected, or the partner selects himself, they go do the work with the customer, complete the work, invoice the customer, and pay us. So one of the questions that comes up often is, well, if you allow a partner to do the work, what's to keep the partner from directly corresponding with the customer in the future? And there's really two answers to that question. The first is that we're sending so much work to these partners that they didn't do anything to get, that if they go around us and cut us out of the equation in the future, we suspend their bidding rights and they lose all of the opportunities that we would have sent them otherwise. So the relationship with us is worth more to them than getting around us and getting a little extra margin on a couple of jobs. The second thing is that the person who contacts us and has that personal interaction with us is generally not the person who personally interacts with the vendor. So for example, the office manager might call us and interact with us, and the guy down on the loading dock is the guy who rolls the waste onto the truck. So they don't see each other, and so there's a disconnect there. But we really have found very little by way of problem with partners circumventing us. We have a master service agreement and a relationship agreement with our partners that says very clearly that that's forbidden. And of course, if they do it, we have the ability to cut them out of our system. And then lastly, because most of the work that we do is the type of services that happens over and over and over. So this waste example that I gave, if you start out with a guy who is printing and has ink waste, he's going to have ink waste again and again and again. So what we try to do is we try to capture that recurring revenue opportunity, put them on a schedule, and make sure that we get that business in the future. The nice thing about that is that unlike the business where we're bringing in a new customer, we don't pay anything for the acquisition of that customer. And that revenue comes to us without any acquisition cost. So it's one of the things that makes our business sort of an exponential growth model, in that in any given month, let's say we sign up an additional 400 customers. Next month we'll have the same 400 customers plus 30% of the preceding month's business, if you follow me. So 30% of our revenue in any given month is coming from existing business. So who are our competitors? Today there are large service providers, particularly in the environmental service industry, like Clean Harbors or Veolia or Stericycle. But these guys are generally not focused on small businesses. They want to pick up, truckload quantities from Dow Chemical. They don't really want to pick up one drum of ink waste in Tulsa. And so we don't see much direct competition from these guys day to day. They certainly could be direct competitors, but as things go today, they're not. Second of all, these large companies, because they have so much corporate overhead, they apply a percentage of that corporate overhead to every job. So if I'm the service center in Tulsa for Clean Harbors, what I can do that job for is a cost much higher than a guy who has 3 trucks and it's run by him and his brother in Tulsa, which doesn't have all that corporate overhead to apply. So we're finding that we're able to compete very effectively against large providers by enabling these smaller guys that have less overhead. A second source of potential competition for us are B2C platforms like HomeAdvisor or Thumbtack or Angie's List that are providing this same sort of service for customers in a B2C environment. And what's to keep them from saying, well, let's move into the B2B world? I think the reason we don't fear these guys particularly is because the B2B world is dramatically different than the business to consumer world. So how you talk to consumers, how you talk to businesses is very different. The vendor network is very different. The nature of the work is very different. And the way you seal deals, day to day with a business relationship is much different than getting a consumer on the phone or getting a consumer to fill out a form and give you a credit card number. But there is definitely competition in the space, and it keeps us honest and keeps us paranoid. In terms of barriers to entry, as I said earlier, we started with a very technical segment, something that we thought would be difficult for somebody to challenge us. We built very, very strong ad rank with Google and with Bing. And this ad rank is sort of it pays a long-term dividend, because as you get higher and higher ad rank with these guys, it's very difficult for somebody to come along behind you and outrank you in pay-per-click results. So that's another reason. And of course, you all know, on the web, the number 1, number 2 result harvest about 85% of the clicks. So if you're number 4, number 5, number 6, you may as well stay home, because you're not going to get any clicks. So, people that work on SEO or SEM and say, look, I'm on page 3 and my task is to get to page 1, that's like saying I'm going to go from getting no results to getting 2% of the results. In our case, in every keyword that we target, we are the number 1 paid result and the number 1, 2, or 3 organic result. So, we're present and we get a lot of activity from that. We built a very powerful partner network. These 1,200 vendors that I talked about, it took a long time to acquire them, a long time to screen them and qualify them and get them, signed up in our system. And again, somebody wants to start tomorrow, we've been doing it for 3 years, they've got to catch up. And then finally, we built complex and powerful technology tools, primarily the PegX, which is, allows us to, I could put 100 jobs into PegX, or I could put 10,000 jobs into PegX, and it would take no additional effort. So the system absorbs all of the opportunities, sorts them, categorizes them, and places them on the platform in a way that our partners can see them, and only to see the ones that they want to see. Because obviously, if you're a medical waste vendor, you don't want to see asbestos remediation jobs, or if you're an asbestos remediation vendor, you don't want to see medical waste jobs. So we built PegX so they self-select what type of work they want to see and what geography they want to see that work in, and PegX makes sure they only see things that are relevant to them. This is a chart of our revenue growth, over the past 2.5 years, and you can see that we've grown from about $60,000 a month in sales to over $400,000 a month in sales. Our revenue has more than doubled every year since we started. So in 2012, we did about $150,000 in annual sales. 2013, we did $1.6 million. In 2014, we did over $3 million, and this year we'll do over $7 million. So we've got very, very strong growth. However, we're having to spend heavily to get this growth, like most startups. So we have a bit of a burn rate that we're working off now. It's our objective to be profitable by September or October of this year. So we're on trend to do that. It could slip by a little bit, but what you see here, the 2014 results are actual, and the first 6 months of 2015 are actual, and those are projections beyond that. This is our capital structure. We have an offering that's ongoing today. It's what we call our Series C preferred stock offering. So the pre-offering column there shows you how the company's owned before we close the Series C offering, and the second column shows what it'll look like after. So part of what we're doing with the Series C offering is we're taking out the Series A round, and so that's how you see the shift in ownership there. This is the nature of the Series C offering. It's open now. It's a rolling close offering, which means that every time we get an investor to invest money, we take that money down right at the time they make the investment. The offering is up to $1.5 million of Series C preferred stock, 667 shares at $22.50 per share. We've closed 1.1 million of this round already, and we expect to close the remainder of the round in the next 30 days. I don't know. Whenever. So there's 400,000 remaining available. If anybody brought their checkbook, I'd be happy to chat. So here's what we're going to do with that money. About 300,000 of it's being applied to working capital, 300,000 to technology development, further development of our platform. We're going to add some more people, pay down some bills, and then redeem the Series A preferred stock. Now this redemption of Series A is a question people bring up quite a bit, but what happened is our Series A investor is actually not the company that invested in us in the beginning. They acquired our stock through an acquisition, so they don't particularly care to have it, and they're willing to let us redeem it at a cost below what they originally paid for it. So it's an anti-dilutive redemption, so we're happy to take them out. Having said that, we're not required to take them out. So if we get the money and they decide not to, that's an option that's available to us as well. So our valuation pre-money was $3.3 million, post-money $4.8, and this valuation has gone up. When at inception we were valued at about $1.5 million, and so our valuation has doubled in 3 years, and of course after the C round it'll be up to $5 million. So that's really my deal.
So at this point, we turn things over to the audience to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also ask if there's a way that our audience can help you solve a problem with the company. So if you want to think about that, and
okay,
pop it back to the audience at some point.
Sure.
I'll pass the mic around. Please just raise your hand if you have a question.
Is there anything that would keep you from stratifying, like if you got a major government contract in the environmental space, or if you got involved with Superfund or major brownfield remediation, or are you set on the, diversifying the revenue streams?
Well, we just recently won a government contract for the DEA, a very large contract. So those contracts are out there and they're available, and of course we're interested in those. But I think the nature of the business we built is designed to be, a large business that provides a large service set. So there's no criteria that says we have to add 2 segments or 10 segments or 15 segments. But I think that, like most businesses, if you see an opportunity, it's available to you, your system accommodates it well, you understand it, and you have the capacity, why not? On the other hand, if we're really, really busy and we don't have the capacity, or we don't we don't need that business, and there's nothing driving us to add segments in any certain speed. And I'm sure if you were to go back to Amazon's inception, right, when these guys are down in the basement packing boxes, with books, if you'd have said to Jeff Bezos at that point, what do you think about doing everything? He probably would have said, I think it's a great idea, but of course they had to grow at a rate that they could accommodate. So I think we're going to grow at a rate that we think is reasonable and sustainable, but we're going to grow as fast as we can within that.
Great talk. Some environmental areas are a bit more voluntary. One needs to clean up toxic waste, but something like insulation, again, some of the areas that might create a bit more sustainability over the long haul can be put off or whatever, and maybe would need a little bit more of the push on your part, the demand push rather than the demand harvesting. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if you're thinking of taking on marketing people, someone to sell the notion of using insulation or whatever to help businesses think about becoming more environmentally sensitive.
Mm-hmm. I think we talk about outbound sales a lot. Should we have telemarketers? Should we have outbound sales reps? Should we do other sort of outbound marketing activities? And our sense of it today is that the best way to interact with a customer is when a customer recognizes they have a need and they are looking for a solution to that need. That's not to say that interacting with somebody to educate them or to explain to them something they don't already know isn't a good idea. But again, today, if we have a choice of people that are already ready to bite, so I equate it, metaphorically to fishing. So the way we market is we sit on the dock and we put a lot of bobbers out in the water and they come to us. And what you're proposing, I think, is much more like spear fishing, right? So you get in the water and you're swimming around and you're looking for the fish and you want to spear fish it. And that's a great technique provided you're where the fish are and you've got, the resources and the time to do that. So I think we respect the fact there are people out there that need something that don't know they need it. But I think what we've got today is the market is so big that we're focusing on the people that know they need it right now. But thanks for that question. It's a good thought.
In that same vein, are you known in the industry as having specialty knowledge, especially based on all the intake data you are collecting? Are you sort of marketing, or have you thought about marketing yourself as like an expert in that sort of in the field? Yeah.
What we did from the very beginning is we recognized that when somebody needs help, they do this search, and the first thing they get is they get the landing page from the search. And most people are a little ADD when they're searching, right? So they get this landing page and they look at it pretty quickly, and if it doesn't feel right to them, or if it doesn't say I'm the answer, they just hit the back button and look at the next result. And so we tried in the beginning to use a kind of generic page that said, we're your service provider, we can provide you all these different services. And I think what happened was people got there and it didn't speak to them quickly that we're the answer. So what we did as a next step is we created a set of independent sites: hazardous waste experts, environmental remediation experts, medical waste experts, and so on. And so when you click on one of our ads, it takes you straight to a landing page that speaks expressly to that need. And so it's much like Procter & Gamble has all these products like Dove soap and so on. Procter & Gamble doesn't advertise, come to the Procter & Gamble site and see if you can find what you want. You say, I need some soap, they take you to the Dove site and they try to close you. So if we follow that philosophy forward, we'll just keep adding these specialty sites. They'll all be in a nice, neat line. Customers will come into those sites and then all come in and converge on our platform. If you look at the B2C solutions like Angie's List, on Angie's List you can get everything, right? You can get a face painter for your kid's birthday party, you can get a bounce house, you can get an excavator, you can get a painter. But what it also says is we're really not good at anything, but we've got a whole bunch of information here that you can sort through it and see what you like. Home Advisor is the same way. You go to Home Advisor and type in painter, and they'll say, do you want a face painter or a house painter? Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't give me this sense that I'm talking to somebody who knows what I need. If you go to Thumbtack, same thing. You say, I'm looking for a painter, you get the same kind of solution. So we've taken a different approach. Our approach is to say, let's create websites that attract your attention and speak to your need, and then you come into our platform from there. It goes back to my Coca-Cola days as well. I mean, nobody goes to the Coca-Cola company site. I mean, unless you're an investor. If you're looking for product information, you go to the brand sites. And so that's what we're doing, is building a set of brands that we think are compelling.
You mentioned in the beginning that there are a lot of barriers to getting into this industry. Can you explain what some of those barriers are? And I guess once you attain them, you said it's like easier to move into the next areas that have to do with certifications or things like that.
Well, with hazardous waste in particular, there are a lot of rules and regulations and laws that apply to that industry. And when a customer calls you, they expect you to be conversant with those things. So if a customer calls and said, "I've got a drum of ink," and you go, "Oh, well, what are the rules about that? What should I do?" I mean, you've got to know. And so what we did is we hired people right out of the gate that were industry experts. And these experts taught the customer service department what the rules were and what questions to ask. And so we sound like we know what we're talking about when you call. And we've all had this experience where you call, I don't know, AT&T or Dish Network or whatever, and whoever answers the phone has no idea, right? They just say, "Oh, okay, well, let me forward you to that department." So you get forwarded, and of course you get the old, "Well, your call's important to us," and all that. You get to the next guy, and he says, "Well, where are you?" "Well, I'm in Wisconsin." "Oh, I don't do Wisconsin. Let me forward you." And you get this experience of being forwarded. So what you arrive at is you get this conclusion: the company probably has somebody who knows about this. It just isn't the person I'm talking to. And our objective has been from the beginning to be sure that whoever calls us, we can help them with whatever they're calling about. So before we'll launch a new segment, for example, we're launching grease trap right now. Grease traps are in every restaurant or food service establishment, and they're designed to separate the grease from the water as it comes out of, say, the dishwasher or so on. Well, grease traps have to be serviced about, depends on where you live, but anywhere from quarterly to monthly. And most restaurants, delay servicing their grease traps until they've got a problem, and then they call and they need service quickly. So before we could launch grease traps, we had to know about them. We had to know the regulations. We had to know how they work. We had to understand the engineering behind how grease traps work. We had to know the language. What's the difference between a grease trap and a grease interceptor? We had to go through all of that education. Then we had to figure out, where are the vendors? We had to start soliciting vendors and calling vendors and explaining it to vendors. We had to build a website that explained it using language that was appropriate. Then we had to go out and do keyword research to determine what keywords people are searching to get to this sort of thing. So you have to build all this stuff out before you flip the switch. And so, for anybody to pick a category to target here, one would think that they would target things that are easier to get into as opposed to the most complicated thing to get into. But it's not necessarily true that somebody couldn't compete with us. It's absolutely true they could. Well, our feeling is that we've got a bit of head start, and that we've picked categories that are inherently complicated and difficult.
Have you ever thought of leasing out the PegX platform to other industries to help them connect businesses, or is it kind of just exclusively your own? Well, today it's exclusively ours, but there's certainly been conversations, about making it available to somebody who wants to utilize a platform like this. So it's possible, but we haven't pursued it at this point. What are the biggest challenges you're facing right now?
I mean, we're at the stage where we're growing so fast. We're adding segments. We're trying to build additional features into our platform. We're trying to add marketing campaigns, and we have a fairly small staff. So what we want to do and what we're capable of doing are a bit mismatched. And it's also because we've capitalized the company, in a way that I tried to preserve my own equity. So I would only raise enough money to do the next thing that needed to be done, because I didn't want to sell a bunch of equity at a low valuation. So we're always undercapitalized. We always don't have enough money to do what we want to do. But that's really been by design. So I'd say that Wade and I are constantly trying to figure out how to handle the cash that we need in the company. Decisions about hiring people are driven more by what cash is available than do we have something for them to do. So I think that our challenge is balancing things, balancing cash, balancing growth rates, balancing investor expectations. We're just trying to balance all these balls.
And I think we'll bring it back to Rachel's original question, but what can we as a community do to help you and your business go further?
Well, there's two things. I mean, obviously, we're looking for investors all the time. So anybody that could put us in front of potential investors, that would be valuable. And then, of course, any businesses, any local businesses that have need of these services, we'd love to connect with them. And we have a particularly sparse set of customers locally. So we have more customers in San Francisco than we have in Wisconsin. And so, I think that's just because of the nature of the internet. The internet's a big thing, and you put an ad up there, and the market sees it, and you get results from places where there's a lot of demand. But it feels strange to live in a community and to have very little business with your neighbors. So anybody that has those sorts of needs, we'd love to connect with them.
We have some connections with the restaurant industry in here that we could potentially connect you with.
Great.
The grease trap side of your business.
Right, manufacturers that use chemicals or medical waste. All the medical waste facilities. We service doctors' offices and dentists' offices, veterinary clinics, laboratories, cancer centers, anything like that. So anybody who produces any sort of waste that's regulated, in any way, we'd love to talk with them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for presenting.
Thank you.
And then Mark will be here, and it looks like you've got some of the crew too, if you guys want to ask any additional questions or meet the team. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Oh, and it looks like we've got some swag over here.
Yeah, it's mouse pad swag.
Awesome.